What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Apex, the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we had two back-to-back banger days, Saturday and Sunday, of Pro League. We're going to get to all of that. Also, me and Don are going to kind of run through not just the America region. We're going to go through all the other regions for people who want to hear more about some of those regions that they can't watch. And then we round it out with the heart-to-heart. But boys, we had a banger weekend of Apex Legends competitive. And it's always good to have the 2 days back to back. The one thing that sucks is you kind of, when a few days pass, they all kind of meld into one thing. But we're going to try our best to separate Saturday and Sunday and talk a little bit about it. We also have Don, who is down deep in the dumps from the Sunday performance. So we're going to break down Team Omit and what the hell was going on over there. But we'll let Don do that a little bit later. Boys, let's kick it off with Saturday. Saturday was the big day, first one that we've had since the ALGS Open, and it kicked off just like we would have expected with NRG, Shopify, and Falcons at the top. You would expect those three names to be there. NRG had an insane day. Shopify followed up right behind them, but it was not close. NRG with 93 total points. Shopify was 65, and then third was Team Falcons. 100 Thieves was right behind them as well. But that was our top three. I guess you consider it the top four. Boys, lots of crazy stuff going on, but you got to talk about the winners from this day. NRG. Jumba, I know you watched a ton of NRG and what they were doing right. I remember after the first Pro League day, we were kind of saying like, we were interested what was going to happen with this team. Obviously, they made a big acquisition. They picked up Sykes. They had Yanya went back to Team Liquid. Sykes joins the team, and it's not like they just had this one good day. They had some good days with Yanya as well, but I mean, 93 points in one day of Pro League in the Americas region. It just goes to show how far this talented squad can go. From your perspective, Jumbo, what were you seeing that was working well for NRG?
Well, so like you said, with Yanya, they had a day where like they dropped a 30-point win. So they always had it, but like at the Open, too, they were the first, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't they the first seed team going into finals? Like they played really well throughout the Open, went through winners and everything like that. I actually thought they had a good chance of taking it. If you asked me in that crowd that day who I thought was going to win, I was kind of like leaning to NRG because they were like doing so well. Now they didn't perform as they would have hoped on finals. I think that they had like some pretty tough zones to deal with and everything like that, but they swap out. As soon as I saw that Sykes got dropped from Envy and then Yanya was dropped, I was like, oh, Sykes is going to NRG. I knew that shit was happening. And Sykes, every team he goes to, like, instantly elevates. I think he's, like, one of the most underrated pros in the scene. His accolades are, like, pretty crazy for, I think, how much credit he gets around. Like, you never hear him being tossed out there as, like, top player in the game. But, like, I mean, I think he's finished, like, second, fourth, like, third. Like the guy is always either top five or missing finals when it comes to lands, other than the Open. But yeah, like he's got pretty good accolades. So, you know, they go out there and they were playing everything perfect. Timmy was going stupid in that first game on Alter. Every team that pushed their building, what was it? Not core. What's the zone? Just
Alpha base.
Alpha base. Yeah. They're dropping stasis array, which typically is a terrible POI, but they were talking before the game saying like, we're going to rotate fast 30 seconds and we're out of this POI. And they were doing it. They were flying, getting to zone first every time. Timmy's zone calls were on point. And then they were just fighting like demons. Everyone who just tried to push the building just died in a millisecond. And it was impressive to watch how fast they were rolling through lobbies. In the first game, they died. Timmy had 8 kills, and they died at 5th. They finished 14 kills and 5th place that game. And they kind of got griefed. They kind of got trolled. Imagine winning that game. They had 14 kills with 4 squads left alive. The next game, Timmy didn't miss a single fucking Kraber shot with his Kraber going nuts.
That was vile.
Yeah.
That poor man Waltzy caught 2 tens. That's just... And you know that the Hal fans were just eating that shit up.
Yeah, they were pissed.
It was like, I think he missed literally 1 shot, and he's screaming for his team to keep coming to him. And the funny part is Guild after the game goes, dude, you were making me pissed off because you would call me over and then you'd 1v3 the squad, and then I'd leave and I'd go knock 2 guys from a squad and you'd call me over and then you'd 1v3 them again, and I couldn't finish my squad I was fighting. And that's how they were fighting. Each of them were 1v3ing guys. Timmy had like 14 kills after 2 games. Yeah, I don't know. It looked like pubs. And the other thing that was kind of crazy too is like there's a couple games they could have won, but to me, like I've always known this. Even when he played with his previous team to try to IGLing, he loves to be aggro. He gets like really, I think, tunnel visioned on when like he gets a lot of opening damage. He wants to jump on a team, even if it's not the best idea sometimes. And that got them like second in one game that they probably should have won. And you know they got a lot of points. That's good, but ultimately the big thing that they got to do is next time they get to finals, they want to make sure they're closing out games and wins. And I think Sykes is going to help with that a lot. Sykes immediately goes, "We could have won that game. The reason I didn't come in there with you guys is like I was trying to like pull you guys back." I think there's going to be a balance here, whereas Timmy continues to improve his IGL, which he looked amazing this day. I'm not fucking knocking him on this thing, but as he improves, as he keeps having these days, maybe having someone like Sykes to kind of reel him in a little bit, kind of make him be a little bit more calmer with that. I think they could be kind of dangerous in a match point final.
Oh, 100%.
I don't know.
100%.
Maybe I got recency bias, but that was a perfect day. That was a perfect day they played.
Now, the one question I had coming from this day and just watching Timmy on NRG is like if there was a Mount Rushmore of Kraber users, guys you want holding the Kraber in their hand, who would you have on your Mount Rushmore? 4 dudes. Who are you having on the Mount Rushmore of Kraber users in Pro League or just competitive Apex in general?
Timmy 0.
That's 2.
Well, okay. Am I going like best? Like, and everyone think about this. Are we going like best sniper? Like Kraber users in general? Because like I think base takes would actually be Trev Stacks. It's kind of fucking insane. But like, is he Mount Rushmore? Like, I'm trying to think like iconic, like founder things. Like I don't know.
I was
gonna
say
tough.
on top of the 2 that you said, the 2 that at least come to mind to me would be Skittle and Yuka F.
Yeah.
Ooh.
See, the thing is, like, I go with 0 because, like, I remember when I was doing my 0 video, I was watching, especially that Sweden tournament, and I know that's really far back, but if 0 gets a Kraber in his hand, he also does not miss.
Yeah.
And then when I asked 0 about that, he flat out told me, he goes, well, I started paying attention and watching how Sweet played with the Kraber, and he goes, I just saw how patient he is with all his shots, so I started playing it like Sweet. So then after, and that's how like he got so good with it. And I asked him, I said, do you think you're the best player with the Kraber? And he said, yes. And so then the funny thing is like, I put 0 on there, but if 0 is telling me he watched so much Sweet, I was like, am I missing something? Is there like Sweet in there that we got to be throwing in? Mount Rushmore is tough for just Kraber users. I especially because like you don't get to see it too often. Because then after I'm like, it was fun not goated with the Kraber too. Like, I don't know.
I think that's a safe 4. I mean, honestly, if you got 0, and then I mean, if Sweet is Zero's inspo,
yeah.
So like that's an undebatable. You have to throw him in there, and I can vouch. Fun is that guy,
right? Like I'm thinking, but like then like fucking Donnie had a really good. Like I'm also just thinking NA. Donnie's right. Like Yuka, kind of nuts.
Okay, well I'm
not too familiar with like APAC North either. Yeah.
Okay, but hold on. Where is Mount Rushmore?
That's a great point.
Honestly, I have no defense against that. So
there's no rebuttal.
I got nothing. So I don't know. Enoch might say Sang potentially based on the last couple weeks. So
yeah. No, dude, that guy he's dangerous. He's been getting a lot of practice.
And then the funny thing too is I think there's like some like pub stompers that like as we're joking about Sang, but I bet there's some pub stompers who are absolutely. No, Mandy? How are we like not thinking Mandy like out here? That guy's just insane with snipers in general. Yeah, like he'd have to be up there.
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting question, interesting just thought in general, because there's so many moments you associate with Kraber usage that maybe the player themselves had one big moment, but there might be a few other players out there. Like I wasn't even thinking of Trev Stacks when I thought of that question. He might just be on the Mount Rushmore of just sniper rifles in general. Yeah. You know,
he doesn't miss.
Yeah. So and then we're not even talking. I didn't even bring up Monsoon.
Yeah,
like Monsoon. He might be, you know, on the Mount Rushmore sniper rifle.
Monsoon's career was somewhat built off a Kraber clip of him just dropping off a roof and insta headshotting Shroud, and then he got raided like by Shroud after that, and Shroud thought he was cheating. But like, so like, that's true too.
What's your final answer, Jumba?
No,
it's your Mount Rushmore. It's yours.
I don't have one.
It's your Mount Rushmore.
No.
Nobody else can do anything about it.
It's really interesting you brought this up because for the past couple of days I've been thinking about like wanting to do like a sort of like Mount Rushmore content, be something maybe for like Twitter, and I was just trying to think of like my Mount Rushmore in general for Apex, and I could not narrow down 4. And I was like, then I need to start like making Mount Rushmores of different parts of Apex. But then there's repeat guys, so I was like, well, every time there's a repeat guy, I guess he would have to be on the actual Mount Rushmore, and I couldn't narrow it down. Like I'm stuck between like zero, like Nicewig, Hal, Dizzy. I feel like are on the top Rushmore, but then who gets that third spot? Like
of just
Timmy,
Apex in general, just like
Apex
the overall.
ASU.
Yeah.
ASU? But why would Timmy not deserve it at this point? And then you know what? I think I don't even watch him a lot, but I think that Fade needs a spot up there too. The
Fade?
movement,
Dude,
movement thing that
Bro,
Fade started is crazy.
I mean, if you don't put ASU on there, you're fucking trolling.
I feel like I have Dizzy.
No, I mean, you're just trolling.
But
I don't care if you have Dizzy.
But
if anything, I like, bro, I mean, ASU is iconic.
He is, but I feel like so then who do you take off? You take off Nicewig or Hal?
I didn't say that.
No, Hal is George Washington.
So
on
you
that
take
number.
off Dizzy. So you take off Dizzy.
I mean, for ASU,
Yeah.
I personally, I'm a little bit biased, but yeah,
Maybe
I
you're
would.
biased, but I thought Dizzy to me is like the godfather of Apex. Like people like Apex, like competition, like everything started because everyone was so focused on Dizzy. That dude was like crazy, like huge.
But could you say that from Dizzy, bigger, like Nicewig spawned from Dizzy, correct?
Asu kind of did too a little bit. Like not Asu was a streamer and Asu was already competing a pro, but like Dizzy was his friend and he brought him over to Apex. They started playing together and he was brought onto NRG because of Dizzy. So if we say that, like, but the thing is like I feel like, and Asu did too. I had this problem too, Enoch. I was trying to think, how do I not put Asu there? But I was like, I feel like from where like Nicewig obviously had his career launched because of the Dizzy raid, but then like he could have just like flatlined as a pro the entire time. He surpassed that by like elevating his content, elevating everything, his impact on the game with what he's done with the watch parties and the B stream. Like, there's no way that Nicewig's not the most influential. Like
He has,
like,
if
Nicewig not like
has to be
top
on there.
2 most
100%.
influential person in.
But
Apex.
I mean, at one point, that man ASU had like 25K bodies in there watching him play pubs and ranked.
But so did Dizzy though. Right. And I get it. Like, I get it. I don't know how I'm fighting like no Asu, but I'm trying to think of that 4th spot because then like so did Timmy. And how do we not give Timmy with
Let's give it to Jayhawk.
You laugh, but the funny thing is, I was kind of sitting there thinking to myself, like, is there a conversation for actually fitting Jay in there somewhere?
Listen, if I had my own personal,
I think Jay's still like on the climb though, like right, like
yeah.
I feel like he hasn't like solidified himself in that icon status, but like.
He's working.
But this is the thing,
definitely
like,
working.
You can have your own personal with anything. Like my personal Apex, I'd have Touche on there. I watched so much Daltouche in the beginning.
It's true.
Like Touche for me was huge. And like getting
Touche.
to interview him was one of the craziest. That was wild. Like that was one of the few times after the pod I just like.
No,
wow, I just did
Touche
that,
is a good argument too, because like he was also very like influential and especially came to like controller players and like console players, like
console,
like
yeah,
that.
he was the face of console,
yeah,
without
exactly,
question.
Right? Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like we got completely sidetracked from Pro League, but like you can't deny this is not like
it's a great discussion, which is why I brought it up.
Picking up just 4 for general Apex because like with the solo to pred stuff that Timmy did, right? Which then spawned literally like everyone doing solo to masters like challenges and everything like that. Like the same thing Enoch was saying, he used to average like 10, 15, sometimes 30, 40K like viewers. I think his Apex solo to pred stream probably is like the most viewed Apex stream. Like I think he had 120,000 viewers when it ended, right? Concurrent. So
yeah, it was insane.
Yeah, that was crazy.
He's done everything. He's like been a pub stomper. He's been top pred, and like he's now competing as a pro. If he wins LAN, there's no doubt you don't put Timmy up there. So like, where does your 4 come? I guess my 4 in that case would end up being Nicewig, Hal, Dizzy, Timmy. But then I feel like there's so many names I'm keeping off.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go.
You only have 4 options though, so there's always going to be people that are going to be like, you can make the argument for, that just aren't going to be able to fit on 4, like 4 spots.
And it's not a slight to them. I think if I had to pick my 4, it would be just overall arching Apex. It'd be Touche, Wig, Hal, Timmy. That's just my personal one. Just for me personally, that's what kept me the most engaged. Yeah, I think that
Donnie
would.
E. You guys,
Donnie, do you guys have your?
What would you guys throw out? And we can refine these. Maybe we'll come back another day where we've actually really thought about this, and we'll do a recap of this. But
see, my problem was I wasn't there like at the beginning, so like I definitely know, like I didn't have that same influence from like Asu and like Dizzy and stuff like that because they were already kind of like leaving the scene when I had really started like getting into everything.
Noko on there.
So I mean, like personally for me, yeah, because he's the first guy I watched, but like I know for people like he's not going to be on there, like respectfully to him. But
bro,
like,
it's your
he definitely had the
Rushmore.
biggest influence for me to get started into Apex. Is like I had never watched Twitch like before I started playing Apex. I never was into any of that. And he was the first person I started watching on Twitch. Wig was second, and then obviously like Hal with TSM. That was the first team I enjoyed watching. Like my personal one, honestly, would probably be like Hal, Reps, Noko, and Wig, just because those are the four most influential people for me and Apex. For like,
those
but
are,
again,
okay. Those are the most influential for you. But try to think about like from what you've seen, like you felt like has like from even your time in here.
Yeah,
because yours would be interesting. Like you're not going to have some of those earlier guys. Like who do you think's been like just most influential? Like for Apex in general, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I think the three. Yeah, I think the three for me for sure that are locked would be Hal, Wig, and I definitely had a third one in now. Oh, and Timmy, at least for me, because I think Timmy not only just like the streams he's had and things like that, but like him getting into competitive, just the amount of eyes, like the Red Bull stuff he's been doing. Like I just feel like there's so much that like he's brought to it. And yeah, I don't really know who that fourth person would be because I mean, there's just so many like different routes you can go within the scene.
I think you can definitely make an argument for Sweet, and I definitely think you can make an argument for his Watson.
I was also going to say his Watson. Yeah. I never got to finish that. Like, yeah,
I forgot about his
Watson and Sweet too. Like, if we want to talk when that peak era, like, there was a period of time where I remember, I was obviously aware of Sweet, and then one day I was just like chilling. I was on Twitch. I was like, so I say 10K viewers. When did that guy start getting 10K viewers? Like, what's going on here? And like, yeah, and then obviously, yeah, his Watson as well. Like, you know, the content he's done with YouTube, the way he kind of like revolutionized comp. I feel like I guess that like bleeds into a little bit of Sea Lion, but I feel like when people saw how good Furia did because of his Watson, they were like, we should get coaches.
Mm-hmm.
We should use coaches.
Okay, so nobody answered my question on Mount Rushmore for just Kraber users.
Well, because like Kraber's so specific, that's hard. But I gave you some good Kraber names.
Listen, Dawn, I want you to give me. You had two names that I'm not remembering right now. Your Mount Rushmore Kraber users, and then we can move on.
Well, I had said Skittle and Yuka F were the two that I had brought up. And then who were the first two that you'd brought up, Jumba? Because I had agreed with that. I
said Zero. And then I did throw Timmy on there. The interesting thing is, though, when we started throwing out other names, I was like, does Timmy fall off this list? Because like then I'm thinking Mandy.
I don't know, dude. Timmy.
I know.
He has the iconic moments.
So does Mandy.
Yeah. Fuck. I wish Mount Rushmore had a fifth head on it.
Yeah. I would say for me, I'd say Zero, Timmy, and then Skittle and UKF. The main reason why I say Skittle is because no matter what team he's been on, I've just always seen like, hey, Skittle, here's a Kraber. Like anybody else in that team will loot the box that has the Kraber or get to the crate that has the Kraber, and they always immediately say, hey, Skittle, here's a Kraber. Like in any situation in comp. So I'm like, okay, this guy has to be goated if every single stop he's been on. I mean, you're talking about Dropped, you're talking about all these top names in Apex. They're all like, here you go, take it. So like, yeah, it's just knocked. Yeah.
Knocked for the Kraber. If you guys
let
don't
him
know,
cook.
Let him cook.
There's I think it's Elbin. Is it Elbin Gate Gaming or no, not Elbin Gate? Is it Emerald Gemerald or Ledge has like a video? It's about Nox picking up the Kraber.
Dude, that was one of the funniest videos I saw at the time.
It does not end well when he picks up that Kraber.
Yeah, so other than NRG, obviously there were some other teams that did well out here as well. I brought up Shopify, I brought up Falcons, and 100 Thieves. Those are all the usual suspects. But a lot of the storyline surrounding this weekend and what was going on was a lot of the roster mania that at the time we didn't really get to talk about as much because we had just had the Hal interview drop and it was still kind of in limbo with how everything was going. But there was a lot of team changes throughout just this day and also the next one as well. One of the biggest ones was Panic moving on over to TSM, and it paid dividends pretty early. Obviously, they get 6th place on the first day, and I believe on the second day they got 3rd. Yeah, they did. So that was a big change moving forward. I did want to kind of talk about this move because you talk about TSM, and it's significance, its impact in Apex Legends, just the org itself, the name, and what it's brought to the esport, Panic is seemingly, and it's not just us saying it, it's the broadcast, it's everyone talking about Panic being up next. They started off not great on this day, but they were able to bounce back, and I think that has a lot to do with just his ability, his talent. Did you guys get any chance to watch TSM? I'll throw it on down to you, Don. What did you see from TSM in at least on Saturday?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because I think in the past with like Duplex's teams and things like that, like obviously he typically plays a little bit more towards like a harder zone type, which they still do, and that's definitely like they're gonna be their identity. But it was really interesting to watch because the little bit that I saw, there was actually a clip where they tuned into the comms at TSM, and it was really interesting to see just how far Duplex is already having Panic play. Which Panic's going to naturally do that just because of Fragger. Like they're naturally going to be, playing a little bit further away, trying to get kills, looking for openings and things like that. But I was actually pretty impressed with the trust that they've already kind of built in a short amount of time to allow him to basically overextend to either look for a spot or look for openings. I mean, there was literally one point that he was just basically playing back and forth between two altar portals. Just, I mean, completely overextended from his team, which obviously Alter allows you to do that a little bit. But like, it was pretty impressive to see the trust that they've already built with obviously Duplex being very established for a long time now and competitive. And then Panic just being kind of newer to like his first big opportunity. So it was really interesting to see. And I mean, you just watch the clips too of this kid play. I mean, he's just fucking disgusting. I mean, there's really no other way to describe it other than that. But yeah, I think that was the biggest thing that, especially this on the Sunday, which I know we'll get to. But yeah, just the trust level they've already built, and obviously Gent just does a great job of rounding out that roster with the experience that he has. I think it's gonna be a team that's only gonna get better. Like I really do think that I don't know how high, if I'm going to say like champs potential, like or land winning potential kind of thing, but I definitely think they're only to get better as time goes on. And the more that Panic gets with these two and gets on the same page, I think they're going to be a roster that's going to be really gross moving forward.
Another team that made a big roster move was Rock Esports. They pick up Saucer, who I had been following for a long time with LG, and he moves on over. Obviously, Nocturnal comes in and replaces him over there. But we saw kind of the Saucer experience once again in this first Saturday. They didn't do as well. They get the 12th place. There was kind of a log jam of teams, all kind of within that 27 to like 33 point range. So really one or two different situations could have drastically changed the amount of points they got. But then we'll follow it up on the Sunday. They absolutely dominated. But this is another big roster change that you want to keep an eye on moving forward, and just kind of looking at some other quick notes about Saturday before we move into Sunday. Team Orchid, the biggest note, by far the biggest news, at least for this podcast, is that Rambo did the thing. He changed his name to Bonanners for Pro League. He went Bonanners for Pro League, boys. Super exciting stuff for us. I know we kind of spoke that into existence. Go listen to the Rambo interview. Huge day. Bonanners is such a sick name. Congratulations to Rambo for making the switch. I don't know if he's going to keep it. I don't know how long he's going to keep it for, if it's just for Pro League, but that was badass. I love seeing it. Team Orchid with the 8th place finish. And then something that I saw Genome talk about on the broadcast, and I don't know if this happened in Game 6, but apparently Timmy played a different legend in every single game up to Game 5. I didn't see who he played in Game 6, but that's also insane, and I just had to shine a light on that. That's crazy. Every single game he's playing a different legend. So shout out to Timmy for all that kind of stuff.
Or does that mean he's just crutching the best available legend at the time?
Hot topic. Let's debate. Let's have Mount Rushmore of crutching legends.
I was just going to say on a more serious note, I will say shout out to NRG because, obviously want to talk about how dominant they were, but they only had one game where they finished outside the top 6 for somebody that's been criticized, obviously, for maybe not being the best zone caller. I definitely think Timmy did a really good job.
His zone calls are on point.
Which, like, I know when I watched the Broken Moon games, they definitely had a lot of favorable zones. but it wasn't necessarily that even the zones were favorable. It was the spots that he was picking for them to play. I mean, you're talking about game one, they literally were in God spot. And for the ent play you mentioned, Jumba, it was literally ROC outside. Accidentally port into the house. They were trying to port on top to fight Liquid. And then the second alter Q doesn't get all the way to the top. They fall literally just in NRG's lap, which then allows 100 Thieves to third it, who eventually wins the game. So if it really wasn't even for that big mistake from ROC, you're talking about them potentially winning game one. They go on to win game two, which really in game two, they maybe didn't have to push TSM off the building that they were in, but they secured KP, ended up getting second, so it's kind of hard to fault them there. And then the third game, they ended up having, I think the third game they did okay, but then the fourth game, they ended up winning the first game on Storm Point. So, yeah, just overall, really good job for Energy with how they played.
Looking at it here, the interesting thing is that, like, Guild and Sykes got to play pretty much the same characters throughout. Like, so, like, match 1 to 3, Guild and Sykes are on Cat Newcastle. Team plays Alter, Ash, Wraith. So very similar characters where you can, like, you know, run around, go invisible, do whatever he needs to do to be aggro. And then fucking 4, 5, 6, they played Fuse Ballistic, and he played Crypto, Sparrow, and then Bank. Did they win the Sparrow game? No. That's the game they actually did the worst in. But I was curious how Sparrow did. But yeah, so kind of cool to see he was bouncing between playing like slower characters like Sparrow, Crypto, but then faster characters.
Yeah, so the last note I had on Saturday was that Team Envy, which is now Team All Gamers, they got 5th place again. So just
5th,
throwing
6th,
that out there.
7th, 8th, always getting one of those.
5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th even. That's where they're at. That is where Team Envy is at. Dropped, and the boys, now Team All Gamers, moved on from Team Envy, at least for now. Anything else, boys, on Saturday before we clean it on up and move into Sunday? You guys got any final thoughts, or let's move right into it?
I was just going to say, Shopify looked really good, and that man Zainu is like, when people like say like he's like in the, like when Walsey says he's like in the conversation for like top 3, like I get it.
No, he is.
He is.
I think he's one of the most impactful players. It's crazy because like I know he did win that LAN with Dark Zero, but like he was still just coming into form at that time. Like he had only played like with Tech before that, and then got poached for that LAN, and goes on to win. I wonder what like current form Zainu would look like with like that Zero Gem Burton team. Probably would have been a super team.
Mm-hmm. No, it's crazy watching him, and also just what a match made in heaven for him and
Koi
and
Empty.
shit. Yeah, MT. Like what a duo together. Like just watching them calm back and forth between one another, it's impressive. Like I mean, I know I talked about them 2 or 3 episodes ago, where I kind of just watched them and saw what they were doing right, what they were doing wrong. Going through and listening to them every single time, it's impressive. He had one of the wildest games. I think it was game 5. He destroyed Team Liquid in game 5 in that Saturday set. Had no right to do it, had no reason to do it. It was on the nut out in kind of outside Barometer, not right next to the bridge. I thought Liquid had him dead to rights. Somehow he didn't 1v3, he got 2 of them, and I think another team came in and finished the third member off, but he was shooting the third member, probably would have got the kill, probably would have had the 1v3. He dies shortly thereafter. Either way, just insane clip from him. I also don't really know what Liquid was doing in that situation. They kind of walked in one by one. Either way, Zainu, really impressive, really great player.
Yeah, and that Saturday set, he had 20 kills, which I believe outside of the couple members of NRG was probably 3rd overall. But yeah, I mean, they quietly won 2 games. I mean, obviously, like we'll talk about him still, but like obviously that day was mainly about NRG. But I mean, they go out, they win game 2, they win game 5, I believe, or game 6. I think it was maybe game 6, but I mean, both times I think showed a lot of really good patience and played the backside of zone. Whereas I know the one they won at Broken Moon, they actually were on the bad side of zone and were able to patiently cross to end up 30 in the final fight. And in game 6, they patiently waited for TSM to kind of clear out of the God spot because TSM fought everybody in front of them. And SR just kind of snuck in behind them and ended up taking the spot from them. I think it was only like a 5-kill last game, but I think this kind of shows the balance that they bring between, they can go get 15, 20 kills if they want, but they're also smart enough to know when they've got the spot handed to them, or when they need to rotate to a certain spot. So it was just a really overall clean performance from them, outside of energy, obviously dominating the day. So.
Yeah. So big shout out to Shopify. That was Saturday, ladies and gents. Let's move on into Sunday here. Sunday was super interesting as well. Rock Esports with the first overall. And once again, it was kind of a little bit of a blowout. 88 points. Second place had 67. And that second place team was Twisted Minds. And then third place is the new look TSM Falcons, was right outside the top 3 by 2 points. They were sitting in fourth place. Lots of stuff to go over here in this one, but there were a lot of other teams and additions to teams. We look over at the Ninjas in Pajama Squad. That was formerly Nine Lives with Vane and McLovin. They added Karev, who was formerly on Liquid, so he was in there. And then we got to see the first version of Luminosity with Nocturnal. So those were some of the newer teams out there playing in this lobby. Boys, there was one team that was not there. Sad, rip, Complexity. They were not there, so there's only 19 teams playing in this set for that day. But I guess I'll start off with Dawn, looking over at Rock Esports. We've talked about it a ton of times. We've seen Sasha at his best. We know when he's feeling confident and feeling good, they do really well. And we also knew the majority of, like, the rest of the squad filled out together is a really good team. And it's weird to see their journey throughout before Pro League had started to where they're at now. Like, it's just this crazy transformation, all these different things going on. But what did you see from Rock Esports today that impressed you the most on?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me was just the way they bounced back from the day before. I think the Saturday, there was definitely always kind of that one thing that they did, whether they, again, the game one from Saturday where they don't alter Q right, or they take the wrong fight at the wrong time, or they end up losing a easy 3v3. Just the kind of that one thing that kept happening that kept them from really adding up a ton of points on Saturday. And you want to talk about bouncing back and just being absolutely ready to go. They absolutely come out. They win game one on E-District and just kind of take it from there. They just did a really good job, I think, of just cleaning up the small things and taking advantage of their opportunities when they had them. And there was a couple games that they even could have won if it was for the right circumstances. I think it was one of the Broken Moon games. They just, no matter what they did when they were in one of the buildings, which I can't remember the end zone off the top of my head at the moment, but I think it was the first game on Broken Moon, and it would have been the Bionomics end game. And they are literally just fighting off teams that just keep wanting to push them. Like, I think NIP was in on them at that point. Leave No Witness to try to push him, Board to try to push him. And they just kept finding a way just to get the kills, stay alive, end up getting the second place, which, I mean, you want to talk about fifth to second. I mean, that's a good chunk of placement points. If you just literally, like they said, were able to survive, just keep fighting them off. I think that's just how we're going to see ROC is just kind of that scrappy team that finds a way. And it may not be flashy at times. It may not be the most beautiful Apex at times. But I think that's just kind of the story of this team. Like, I think they haven't found the easy way to get to where they're at now as a team. So, like you mentioned, so many different things have gone on to make it such a roller coaster of a journey. But for them to find a way and just absolutely frag out and dominate the lobby like they did, just absolutely hats off to them, because it was pretty impressive to see them bounce back in such a big way.
Yeah, they were really impressive. And then right behind them was Twisted Minds. The entire set, it was them going back and forth, like trading off wins. And like at one point, you're like, okay, Twisted Minds going to win this day. Then it goes back to Rock Esports, and it just keeps going back and forth. Jumba, from your perspective, Twisted Minds, they have continued to impress. They weren't just a flash in the pan. And like we said before the open, getting to Japan was just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. It's not like that anymore. This is like a legitimate team. This is an impressive team, and they're feeling a lot of confidence and going into these matches with a lot of confidence. The way they're fighting is super impressive. From your perspective, how are you looking at Twisted Minds and how they're playing right now?
I mean, the biggest thing that I think Alb needed for a really long time is just a team he was comfortable with. And I guess he's kind of finally found that in Enemy and Crook. Like in previous squads, like, there's a lot of times there was clashing with teammates. I feel like when he was playing with Scurry, like they were all right, like they were good, but they just weren't elevating to the next level. And I don't know, Enemy and Crook are doing that for them. So like, yeah, it's cool to see. I don't really have much else to say about them other than like, we'll keep eyes on them. And if they keep performing, I mean, like, who's ever going to be upset when Alb is competing at the best as he can? there's a cool story there if he wins something.
Me and you have talked to Alb a few times now and gotten to like kind of go through his entire career where we've interviewed him when he was at a low, and then we've interviewed him when he's, qualified for Japan. Like we've seen him kind of do everything like from your end. Cause we've talked to him before. How awesome is it to see him kind of like back in this spotlight again? Like it's cool. It's cool to have him back.
Fire. And I actually got the chance to talk to him after the Open. Before they kicked us out of the building, I was going to go around and meeting like a decent amount of the players, and he was one of them. And I specifically went up and I was like, dude, I just want you to know, like, it's like so cool to watch your like this story play out and like your like come up again, like going from like where you were to then that low, and then now seeing like you stuck with it, like you kept on putting in the work, and then like there was a lot of times where it was looking pretty dark, right? But like he's just showing everybody that he always had the ability within himself. And as you said, like now he has a team where he's able to like really show that. And it's pretty cool to see. And I think if you're somebody out there and like you don't know about like Alb's story and like you're just like getting into Apex and like the recent like last couple years, like you should do some homework on that boy Alb, because it's definitely a cool story to look at and to learn from. No doubt.
My biggest regret at the Open is that we were walking by Alb to go get canes, and he was walking back, and I didn't stop and just have a conversation briefly. It's my biggest regret at the Open.
Yeah.
I've thought about that. I was like, man, why didn't I say hi? Like, why didn't I stop and talk? I don't know. I've actually thought about that several times since New Orleans. Yeah.
Don, did you have
Alb
something?
is like the guy that got me into Apex. But anyways, continue.
That's another one, Mount Rushmore. Like that's not to reopen it, but like that's one we forgot to bring up.
It is true because like of like everything he pioneered in the beginning. I guess the reason I didn't throw him up there is because Apex has been out so long now. I'm trying to think of like the holistic view.
Yeah.
In like the last 2 years, it's not like I don't want to ever be like, oh, it's not like he hasn't done anything. No, it's just like there's just been other people who've like just transcended like what like they've become like icons in like the social media world, not just fucking Apex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
Dawn, I think we've put it off long enough. Let's talk.
Wait. We can put it off more. Let's talk real quick about Fusion. Them boys, Fusion. Let's talk about Fusion. Our boys. So like, what's it called? Damantic January. They pick up Kimchi. Excited for that. And then obviously, as we've talked about, our boy Burke coaches this team, and they're off to just a brutal day. Let's go through the games real quick. 2 points
in the first 4 games.
I was gonna build the suspense. I was gonna go match 1, 0 points.
We don't bury the lead around here.
Match 2, 0 points. Match 3, 2 points. Match 4, 0 points. 4 games in, they have 2 points from 1 game. And then they get second with 20 points in match 5 and then 17 points in match 6 for another second. Probably could have won both games too, according to Burke, and they finished 5th. Well, what a fucking comeback. Those boys have finished, I think, 5th twice now.
One of the most impressive bounce back performances I've ever seen, because like you said, they had nothing going for them whatsoever. And then all of a sudden they just bounced back with 2 insane games. I don't know if they could have won game 6, but I do think they should have won game 5. I think Falcons ends up winning that one in a 2v3. So I think they could have cleaned that one up. But I guess if you're going to lose a 2v3 to any team, it's like
don't lose a 2v3. No, I can't remember.
You should.
I remember watching it briefly, but
if it's Falcons, you're like, all right, it's Falcons. Like that's okay. But no, they seriously they bounced back so hard. It was awesome to watch and super impressive. I remember going through. We're all in the Discord watching it together, and just kind of like talking as things are going on. And all of a sudden, I look up at Fusion, who was sitting at 19th. Mind you, there is no 20th team because Complexity's not there. And I look, I'm like talking to Chris. I'm like, wait, are they in 7th right now? He's like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, are they in 5th right now? Like, what just happened? Like a complete turnaround. Absolutely huge bounce back performance. And you love to see my guy Kimchi in there. Love Kimchi to death. So happy to see him move on. That was another move I didn't really highlight when I was going through some of the newer teams. But for them to bounce back in such a big way in 2 games is what makes Pro League so weird. and also important. Like, you just have to have some of those performances and that ability to bounce back, even when the entire day has been going against you. You just have to find a way, and they did. So shout out to Team Fusion, shout out to Burke and the boys. And he gave us a synopsis that lasted an hour after that set was over, like breaking down everything, how frustrated he was, how happy he was at the end of it, what he thought they should have done different, everything. That's just Burke for you.
Another yapper in the group.
Yeah.
But now, speaking of frustration, is that a bad transition? Should we not do that? Is that a bad transition?
Bro, there was never going to be a good transition into this, so it is what it is. So.
Let's talk about the team. Dawn, oh shit, omit, a chant that I famously started.
Is definitely what described this.
Let's talk about omit.
Sunday.
Let's talk about the boys, because there was some interesting team compositions, and they kept true to their identity. They were out there fighting a lot. It just did not go our way. Didn't break our way on Sunday.
Yeah, so it's strange because I would say about the first 80% of like the game that they were like participating in, so like early game and then basically mid game, I honestly was really good. They got early KP in basically every single game. The one like ROC's feeling really good about themselves game 1. They come game 2, ROC tries to rotate through E-Bank because, most zone teams are playing out of E-Bank except for not omit because they don't give a fuck and do what they want. They just sit there basically rat and throw ROC's game basically out the window. They get 0 points after winning game 1. So, but like that part of the game was actually pretty good, getting the early KP and actually finding creative ways to get to zone. But then that last 20% of each game just felt like fucking dog shit. It was it was tough to watch. It just didn't seem like there was a commitment to like make a move when it came to a rotation. They were committed to their fights, but they weren't committed to a spot. And I think that's what definitely led to a lot of really shitty ways to end a game, because there was one that they were underneath viaduct in the second game on E-District, and they kept saying we should pour on this team that has blue shield, which was, I think it was like movie star Koi, I think, who ended up being that team, which they ended up finishing 4th in that game. And if we're on purples, they're on blues. They're a zone team that's just does not have the comp to fight. And they just kept saying we should ashboard them. And by the time they actually were going to make the decision, Cody ends up getting like naded out, I think, by LG, who was on top, and just absolutely like ruins that game. It just seemed like they just weren't committed to make that move like when they needed to for like that mid to late game. And that kind of just spiraled and everything else. And then we got, Conduit coming out, and we got Seer and Mirage coming out.
Lifeline round 1.
The lifeline round 1. I don't want to throw people under the bus, but I just need it on the record that was not me. For my sake moving forward, I just need to put it out there that was not me.
But breaking news, Dawn did not want lifeline.
I'm a lifeline main, so like that says something, but no, it is, like I said, I knew coming into this that like I'm going to throw out opinions and suggestions, but at the end of the day, like the guys need to play what they want to play or they're comfortable playing with. And whether I think that's, a throw or whatever the case is, like, they're the ones playing the game, and I need them to be comfortable with what their plan is and what they want to do. So I'm there to support them no matter what wacky comps they want to run or wacky ways they want to play the game. And I'm just there to help as much as I can to, with what I can do. So.
If you guys don't qual for land while playing Revenant, Conduit, Seer, did you actually have fun? Probably not. So I respect their play. On a Rev fucking comp.
Yeah,
imagine.
well,
Mount Rushmore of crazy comps. Omit.
I mean, it was funny watching it back because I think it was who was it? Was it Dia and Jamerson? I think that were on the call.
Oh yeah, they were kind of low key roasting.
They were not even low key, bro. They were absolutely roasting the comps.
Jamerson was going in on Omit,
and I was just like, it is what it is.
Yeah,
but, I mean, like I said, I do think that outside of the comp stuff, it's a lot of small things that they can fix that I think will get, because I mean, like I said, we're getting the kills for as not highly as we placed in like any game. We still had like 17 or 20 kills.
Yeah.
We just literally couldn't place above fucking 10th place, which is not going to get you anything. So like it's small fixable stuff that I think that we can get in the lab and figure some things out. So I'm not really too concerned right now.
Yeah, that is team oh shit. Omit. Those are the boys. Omit. Shout out to the boys. Did you guys have any last thoughts on Sunday before we move into the overall standings and then kick it on down to Waltzy? Anything else that came to your guys' mind?
I mean, I do think we just need to bring up real quick the fact that Falcons DC'd from a game and still won that game.
They just keep doing impressive things.
Because in that game that they beat Fusion, it was like 8 or 9 squads.
Yeah.
There's a moment where Zero is on Pathfinder on top of one of like the heights and core, looking down outside of like the main center part, and then he literally just stops moving, and he just gets beamed, obviously, because like everyone's gonna shoot a Pathfinder that's not fucking moving, and the broadcast is like, and Zero peaking on 1 health, like just not realizing what was going on, and then Jamerson finally figures out that he DC'd. But then they get the res on Zero, he's able to get back into the game, and then of course Falcons fucking win. Because that's the fucking plot armor that they always have.
Yeah.
But like, I just thought
I'm
that was
pretty sure they won as a 2-man at the end of that.
Yeah.
Well, Zero got back into the game, and he is like he gets back in, but then as like the final 4 or 5 teams or whatever, I think it's Waltzy that ends up getting full killed. And it's just
Zero. I'm
It's
just saying,
Zero.
like,
It's
in
Zero.
like
Is it
the
Zero?
final group of teams, they won as a 2-man from the spot that they were playing.
Zero
Yeah.
gets
Which
revived.
I thought was pretty baller.
Zero gets revived, and then something fucking happens, and he gets stuck out again, and then insta dies, and then he was like pissed, and then Waltzy and Hal closed it out. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure that's how it is. Because I remember listening to Zero kind of getting annoyed that he spawned and died again right away.
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought that was a funny moment to bring up.
Yeah. It was, so that was our weekend. Boys and girls, we had a lot of fun watching some Apex Legends. We do have 4 days remaining and then the final. I'm going to throw up the overall standings as they sit in the Americas region right now. Lots of time left, plenty of opportunities left, but you are starting to run out of time if you're some of those teams in the bottom section right there. And I'm looking at one of the ones that really caught my eye was Team Liquid because they had some not great days this weekend, and they finally reunited as the Team Liquid that we know and love, and not the best. They dropped 5 spots. They're sitting just outside by 1 point. They got 36. Fusion sitting inside, tied with Ape Gang at 37. So they're going to want to bounce back real quick. And there is a lot of teams sitting right there that you hope to see can bounce back a little bit. You talk about like the Sentinels, Ninjas in Pajamas, Furia, Luminosity. Those are some of the teams right there that are all kind of gauging for those final spots right outside the top 12. So that is where we stand so far. Plenty of time left for some of these teams, but you're going to need some big performances here if you're sitting there. And then there's some other teams like right now, Don, Omit, we're going to need some big bangers, big bounce back days here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for us is like we still have 3 match days before the regional final, whereas there are some teams that have already played 4. So if anybody's really trying to see where everything stands kind of going into the home stretch, definitely check the standings after the Saturday games, because that'll mean everybody's played 4 match days before we get into Sunday. So definitely tune in for that if you're wanting to really keep track, because that'll be the really, that's the last point you could really see everybody even before it gets in the regional final.
And who knows, Complexity could still find a way and make it. Who knows? Anything could happen. Anything could happen in this league. So we'll just have to see what happens here. Ladies and gents, that should just about do it for breaking down everything that happened in Pro League this weekend. Me and Don are going to kind of run through the other regions for people who want to hear more. Let's hit a quick ad and let's get into it. All right, ladies and gents, we talked about the Americas region. Let's talk about some of these other regions before we move into the heart to heart. And it's just me and Don right now, but there are a lot of different things to talk about with a lot of these different regions. We're going to start in EMEA and talk about what went on in those 2 blocks of Pro League. Let's start off with block number 1, Donnie. Obviously, Alliance was the winner. They had Gaming Gladiators in second place. They have a brand new look with Funk on the squad. Very interesting dynamic there. Very rarely do I feel like we see an NA player move over to a different region. But that's what happened with Funk as he moves on from Complexity over to Gaming Gladiators. And then third place, we had Team FaZe. Just outside of third place, we had Navi with 1 point. They were back there. And then I think I need to never talk about Go Next ever again because I hyped them up so much before the Open. And then since then, they were eliminated so early from the Open and then drop a 16th place, at least on the first block day. So let's talk a little bit about that first day. Don, from your perspective, what'd you see in EMEA?
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of classic Alliance being Alliance. So get off to a hot start on Broken Moon, getting the first game win. Had a 28-point win, so 16 kills. Unlucky with 7 of those. I mean, again, just kind of the classic Alliance performance. Had it kind of fell off a little bit towards the end, so it kind of probably would have been a bigger day. They ended up kind of, still getting to 78 points, but I mean, they had 28 points game 1. They had 27 game 2, even like 6 game 3. And like I said, kind of fell off a little bit towards the end. They bounced back with a 3rd place, 13 points in the last game. But again, I think Alliance just kind of knows like they can basically do what they want to do in EMEA Pro League. So they're not really too concerned about how much they win or lose by. But yeah, like you mentioned, GG coming in second with the new look roster with Funk. Definitely big shout out to them for coming in, getting the 2nd place. Funk did lead them with 11 kills. Did seem to fit in nicely. And again, I think for somebody that did come from NA, they should be coming in and fragging in these lobbies. So big shout out to them for how well they played. And then FaZe Clan, who I believe was in 30th before this last weekend, bounced back with a 3rd place to start kind of righting the ship to hopefully get themselves qualified for EWC, which the big difference for NA to EMEA is that you have to be top 8. So, and even really top 7 because Alliance is guaranteed a spot. So FaZe still has quite a bit of ways to go to kind of put themselves back in the position they need to qualify. But them adding Nags onto the roster definitely seemed to make somewhat of a difference, at least for this set. And then the new look Navi with a new 3rd. They had added Slab and definitely seemed at least, they were already playing pretty well in Pro League before then. So it at least seemed that the sub at least was comparable to when they had Zidane. Slab ended up leading them with 13 kills. So we'll have to see how they continue to look moving forward because, again, I think we all kind of agreed that the best they had looked was with Zidane. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do moving forward.
Yeah, so that was the first block of Pro League for EMEA this last weekend. Then we move on into the final block on Sunday. We had Zero Tenacity with the win. Navi once again in 2nd place. They seem to be up there a lot. Then we have Shalala in 3rd. There we go with Go Next. They get the 4th place there. So there's a little bit of a bounce back moving forward. But Don, on that 2nd day, anything you wanted to add in right there?
Yeah, I mean, Zero Tenacity. This is a different version of Zero Tenacity. Like the org had dropped the previous roster, picked up a different roster. So this is kind of who they have now. I believe this was Pengu Power, before this, and now it's named Zero Tenacity. Honestly, there was so much shit that went on with roster mania and EMEA. Yeah. I could not keep anything straight. So I apologize if I say anything incorrectly, but just know that if I say something wrong, EMEA figures shit out. That's all I can say. So, but I mean, Fanix and Feuda both ended with 15 kills on the match day. And again, for a team that definitely could use the points, definitely put them in a pretty good position. I believe that moved them up to even like 4th place overall with that day. So definitely something they needed. And they still have a match day in hand. So they're going to be in a really good spot moving forward with that. But yeah, I mean, just going to go down the list. Big notables. Shalala, who used to be the EXO clan roster, they get 3rd, look pretty good with Tyler, K-Swinny, and Chaotic. And like you mentioned, Go Next, absolutely having to bounce back after the previous match day. Do a pretty solid job. Again, I think there's definitely still some things that they need to figure out to really get themselves back on track. Because like you mentioned, I think that was probably the biggest shock of the Open was just how poorly that went for them. So I'll be interested to see if they can kind of right the ship and get back to where they need to be. And then I think the other big storyline was Ronan with the first look with Nasky. Obviously, everybody saw Nasky's situation. The NIP roster kind of being taken out underneath them from at least what it sounds like. Again, we don't really have every side of that story, so I don't want to say too much on it, but honestly finds himself in a pretty good situation with MG Clutch. Ronan was already doing pretty solid before that. But honestly, adding Nasky, which he moves from like the IGL role into more of a backline anchor role for this team, and honestly, overall looked pretty good. They definitely could have finished a little bit higher on the day. They kind of slowed down towards the end, but overall, I mean, a 5th place for them, definitely in a pretty good position overall. And again, I think another roster that I think with more time, with Nasky's experience, bringing in kind of the fragging power that MG Clutch brings. Going to be a really exciting team to watch, and I'll be interested to see if they can get into the qualifying places for EWC, which we can probably move into if you want to go through that real quick for the overall standings for them so far.
Yeah, so that was the EMEA region. Those were the 2 Pro League days, Saturday and Sunday from EMEA. Let's move on over into APAC North. And on the first day, it was A versus B, and we had our winner, Noah's Fox. Second place was Meteor. Third was RRX. And right outside of it was Tech Wing. Let's run through that first day, Don. What'd you see from the first day of APAC North?
I mean, honestly, just an absolutely insane day from Nosy Fox. I mean, that's really the big storyline. 107 points, which, again, I don't know how many times in the past we've seen anybody break 100. Again, for those who don't know all the ins and outs of the rules, they do get an extra point when it comes to the Pro League standings. So that'll be big for them just in terms of kind of, again, you're just looking for any points that you can get. Because, again, unlike the Americas region, the other 3 regions, like I mentioned with the EMEA, are only going to have 8 teams qualifying from Pro League. The biggest difference with APAC North is that they didn't have anybody from the Open taking a spot. So it will truly be the top 8 from APAC North. So any extra points you can get is huge because, again, you're only sending 8 of your 30 teams to EWC. So big day for them. Every single player in double-digit kills. Leica ends up getting 24 on the day with 11k damage. And then Satuki and Rufa both with 16 and 15 respectfully. So really big day for them. That really is the main storyline. Again, Meteor ended up getting 2nd place, which is big for them. RRX coming in 3rd, Tech Wing 4th, and VG 5th. But again, I mean, it was such a clear as day. Nosy Fox comes out winning game 1, 2nd game 2, 2nd game 3, 3rd game 4. I mean, just an absolutely dominant day. I think their worst place was 6th because they ended up winning the last game. So it just an absolutely insane day. And big shout out to those boys.
I guess the biggest surprise for me is that that's pronounced Nosy Fox and not Noah's Fox. So,
and I honestly could be wrong. That's just what I thought I've heard. So you could be right. So I'm not even going to sit here and say anything bad. But that's, we're doing our best. I think the biggest surprise the biggest surprise we can probably actually go into, Fnatic in 19th on the day, which they have been playing pretty well in Pro League. Obviously, I don't think they achieved everything they were hoping for at the Open, kind of being one step away from making finals. But I mean, I don't think I've ever really seen a Fnatic roster ever finish outside of like the top 3 or 4 on a Pro League day. So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how they bounce back from that. Because again, I think that's kind of a shock to their system and how exactly do they recover because they didn't play on the Sunday. So it's not like they kind of had that immediate, like we can get it back tomorrow, kind of that baseball analogy of, well, there's always tomorrow. And so it'll be really interesting to see what that roster does. Because again, for those who don't know and maybe haven't kept up with the roster mania as much just throughout the year, that roster is completely different from what it was at Champs. It's Libel Ace, it's Yuka F, and Colonel Garcia. So this is really their biggest piece of adversity because the Open was its own thing. But now you get 19th in a Pro League day. Like, how do you bounce back when you don't play for another week? So I'll be really interested to see how they look when they play again this Saturday. But that's going to be, I think, probably the biggest storyline outside of Nosy Fox is how does Fnatic look moving forward?
Then we move into the second day here, SBI Esports with the win, Striders in 2nd place and Arneb in 3rd. I hope I pronounced that one right. Right outside of that is, I'm not even going to try. You know what? I'm going to stick with the top 3 because I might have already messed up the Nosy Fox one. But that's our top 3 from APAC North. Don, once again, let's run through all the storylines from this second set.
Yeah, this set was kind of the story of the lesser known names because we had in this lobby, we had a Riddle Order, we had a Crazy Raccoon, we had a Reject, we had an Interforce 36, kind of the names you'd expect to probably be the top of the leaderboard. And the top out of those 4 teams was Interforce 36 at 6th place. We had a Riddle Order down 11th. We had Crazy Raccoon, who continues to struggle, which is, for those who don't know, that's Obli, Karampe, and St. June. They were down in 15th. You had, and like I said, I think there was one or two. Oh, Reject was down in 13th, which again, for those who don't know, that is the roster with Uris and Mia K. So that's kind of the big storyline for me. Again, huge kudos to SBI Esports for how well they played, getting 82 points on the day. They had gotten, I believe it was like a 4th and a 3rd. I think they ended up winning a couple games towards the end. Yeah, they won games 4 and 5. So they definitely overall had a very, very solid day. And again, I think that was another roster that really needed the help because even with winning that day, they jumped up to 10th. So they definitely needed a big day. So big shout out to them. And now, you're looking at some of these names that are really struggling just in the overall standings. You're going to have Riddle Order down in 21st. You're going to have Crazy Raccoon down in 28th. I mean, we're literally talking about the defending champions from barely a year ago. Or I guess not defending champions, but land champions from a year ago being well outside the qualification spots for EWC. That's going to be a huge story moving forward because they're even struggling to stay in Pro League. Like, you got to get top 22 to stay in Pro League.
They're down there.
You're telling me that an ex-land champion may not even make the next Pro League? Like, that, I think, is one of the biggest things that we'll have to stay tuned for. And again, even like a roster like Riddle Order that had Meltstera coming from the Fnatic roster, they're in 21st, so they're barely hanging on. They won't even make a regional finals right now. So, like, APAC North is just kind of on its head. It's not used to seeing the names like this down in the spots that aren't anywhere near qualifying or anywhere near leading. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see. You got a team like RRX, who I don't think many people assumed would be leading the Pro League, is number 1 right now. So, and we got GHS Boom, who again is probably one of the more names that people got used to at the Open with Ulari Man. They're sitting there in second with the match day still in hand. So as long as they don't get last, you'd probably talk about GHS, who again was a PSQ team jumping into first place overall. So APAC North is kind of honestly just on its head. And I think that's just what makes Apex so crazy is that, and I think you can agree to this, it's like you can see one team being first place top 5. That next year, they might have gotten into one single argument about what the fuck ever, and they just aren't even in Pro League anymore. Like, yeah, it's honestly crazy.
And this was what people worried about with match point format and what it might bring was a team like Reject, now Crazy Raccoons, having like a win and then being in this position. And I'm not trying to call for, saying that they're not good anymore, or they've lost it, whatever it may be. But this is what people worried about when match point was a thing at the beginning, that just teams would kind of randomly get chances to win. We obviously know that hasn't been the case. You could say almost every single LAN win has been followed up by the team or players continuing to have like really good success wherever they go. But the one that you can look at least at this point, is the Reject one from LA. So that's the one that you can kind of, I don't know, like that might be the outlier, and I don't want that to be the case. But at least how it's played out since that day, it's definitely looked like that as we move forward. Let's move into APAC South. APAC South, also every single region had 2 days of ALGS Pro League. Let's move into the first one here. VK Gaming, we've heard that name a lot, and Dawn has brought that name up a lot. They win another block. Second place was MDY Black. Third place was Seoul Esports, and just 2 points outside of that was JD Gaming. Dawn, APAC South, what did you see from the first day of APAC South?
Yeah, I mean, it's a region that if you've never watched, it is just an absolute cluster. Like, it is, you never know what you're going to see. You never know what team might come out on the day. It is just, it's a brand of Apex that it's almost just like, I don't even know if I call it Apex sometimes just because how the game gets played over there. But I mean, there's so much talent there that I think that's the main thing that I want to hit on is like, there are so many solid teams from there. I mean, again, you would think from these qualifying spots for, how well teams did at the Open that, maybe you see a couple of MIA teams, a couple of America's teams, getting these automatic qualifying spots. One of those 5 went to a team from APAC South. So like, and you talk about all the team, the Dark Zeros, you talk about the Waltzy's roster, you've had all these guys come to the Americas, and I think there's definitely a rap that APAC South is 4th best, but I really do contend that this is a region that if they just get a little organization is definitely going to continue to produce talent. And VK Gaming is definitely one that like I love bringing up because again, outside of the Open at a traditional, ALGS LAN, they've been top 10 at year 2 in Germany, or been split 2 in Germany, and then champs. So I really think highly of that roster. I think they've played now in a couple different metas and shown that they can play with anybody. And like you mentioned, they ended up getting first on the day. We'll talk about the Sunday where they back it up with 2nd place. I think they're just a roster that is just in fine form. They're first overall now in APAC South Pro League. So really it's just a credit to them with how well they've played and how consistent that they've continued to play. You had a Soul Esports with, again, that is Sharky's team. They ended up getting 3rd. JD Gaming was a new org into Apex. I believe they have a pretty big standing in league, if I remember correctly. But they had signed the old X and Y roster, which for anybody that knows X and Y, that is a team that literally just fights anything that breathes. So that's always a fun roster to watch, and it's cool to see another org join Apex. But yeah, just overall, just another fun day. I mean, we literally saw bands of Crypto, Sparrow, Ash, Ballistic, Pathfinder. Like, if you said that would happen in Americas, I would never believe you for a second. Like, you always see the Cats and the Newcastles and stuff like that get banned. This region just doesn't believe in those as much. And it's honestly just fun to kind of see what ends up coming out of this region because you just never know what you're going to watch.
Yeah. And then we move into the second block here and something interesting. And I mean, I almost tweeted this today, but I didn't want to disrespect Donnie. I was going to tweet, I wish I had more friends to talk about soccer with. I look over at this and I see the Wolverhampton Wanderers logo, and I click on it, and apparently the Wolves from the English Premier League has an esports division, and they've picked up a team in APAC South of all regions. Who would have? I would have thought they'd maybe do one in EMEA, but they do one in APAC South. So Wolves, which is awesome to see for me as just a fan of the Premier League, they're sitting at 5th. But let's go through the actual winners here. Green Stego up top, and guess who is in 2nd? VK Gaming. They're there once again. Yes, Heroes in 3rd, and then MDY Black. Back-to-back good days. They finish in 4th right there. Like I said, Wolves in that 5th place position, not too far out of that. Alcadzia, who had a crazy run in the Open, they're sitting there at 6th. Don, from your perspective, what did you see from the second day in APAC South?
Yeah, it really was just kind of a back and forth between VK and Green Stego. VK definitely got off to a little bit of a better start. They ended up winning games 2 and 3 on E-District, which I think when we get to like those E-District maps, especially for APAC South, I think those teams that have been to LAN and kind of know how to play that map probably will come out on top a little bit more often than not. But when we get to like the Broken Moons and like the Storm Points where things are a little bit more open, I think that's definitely where you could see some upsets. Here we still saw Green Stego getting 1st in game 4, 3rd in game 5, and they ended up getting an 8th in game 6. But yeah, VK Gaming definitely got off to the better start, but then Green Stego definitely pulled it back. I had a big game 4 win with 26 points, 14 kills. Just again, another overall solid performance from Green Stego, who I think we can kind of come to expect these kind of performances from them. Their only questions ever been is just how they do it LAN, and if they can ever pull their performances from the Pro League into LAN. They actually end up getting a top 10 at the Open, so that might be a sign that they might be figuring some things out. I do say that they kind of did throw Souls fucking finals, because literally in that game that Falcons ended up winning, they literally just dive bombed them in the backside of Trials. So maybe they still have a couple things to learn, but overall, especially when it comes to the Pro League, Green Stego, who again is the ex-Makers roster, definitely one that's always solid and one you expect to be up there. And yeah, like you mentioned, Wolves, again, another cool thing to see. A big org, like a freaking professional soccer organization, coming in and joining Apex. For those who don't know, that was the old SWQ roster. So definitely cool to see with that. That's Crazy Kong, No Name, and Donut, which again is just some awesome fucking gamer tags. So shout out to those guys for that. But yeah, just cool to see new names, new faces in Apex. And like you mentioned, Alcacia just kind of comes in with a 6th place overall. Definitely something that they needed, because even though how well they did at the Open, they were struggling in Pro League, which is what made their run at the Open even more insane. Because even after their 6th place, they're still 19th overall right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the big storyline. It's kind of seeing how they progress. The big thing for them is that they are auto-called, so it doesn't matter where they finish. But if they finish like outside the top, top 8 or whatever, it's going to be the top 7. But if they finish somewhere else, it's going to really like kind of affect where some of these teams try to line themselves at, because they might want to try to finish top 7. They could finish top 8. Just kind of depends where they fall, which then kind of allows the other teams to see where they're at overall. I think the other crazy storyline was Lonely Let Gone, who I believe was in 2nd overall in Pro League coming in, played as a duo. So I don't know if you've heard this story. I think I might have told you, but
no, we talked about it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, I don't want to say too much because I don't know every single detail of what happened. But essentially, Roy, who's the main IGL on that team, him and their third got into an argument just over, I'm assuming, just the game in general. It was Tao, who was their third. Essentially, it led to Tao deciding not to play, but he watch partied only Lonely Let Gone play. He didn't have a bunch of different POVs. He only watched the duo play. So I don't know what that means for like the future of that team. If they add somebody else, if they come to, some sort of agreement and he comes back and plays. But like for a team that was in 2nd place and had a lot of momentum. I mean, again, they had Soji, who literally was first in the world in kills at one point. Like, to go from that to now you're in 14th overall, because I think they got like 18th or 19th on the day. Like, that is just a crazy storyline. And again, just something something I feel like only really Apex South would produce. But yeah, I mean, that's just with, looking at the overall standings, you're looking at names like Lonely Let Gone being outside the top 8. Yeah, Cassia's down in 19th. I mean, there's definitely some big names that have a lot of work to do to get themselves into the auto qualifying spots for EWC. But again, really it's the big names like VK Gaming, Green Stego have kind of solidified themselves and are looking pretty good moving forward.
Yeah, so that should just about do it, ladies and gents, for everything going on in Pro League around the world, around the ALGS. We're going to throw it on down to the heart-to-heart with all the boys and send you guys on the rest of your week. Let's get it. We got heart-to-heart this week, boys and girls. And normally we start off with Jumba. Don, do you want... I think I'm going to throw it down to Don right now. Yeah, I'm taking your spot. You just got your spot taken, Jumba. You just got your spot taken.
Fucked. Okay.
Don's first now.
Let's go. Go, Donnie. That's crazy.
I think I will just rip that I'm very thankful for the group of friends that I've established through all of this, because I'll be honest, Sunday was a very rough day for the Omit crew. And yeah, definitely came in, was really happy for Burke and the boys. They performed really well, but it's obviously like when you do so shit, it's just like all you could really focus on. And I've asked the boys for a long time to play Among Us, and what did they do? They got a group together and we ripped a game of Among Us, and that turned to a few hours of just being able to kind of forget about what had happened and just basically kind of learned that, some shit's going to happen, but you usually got a good group of people to back behind you. You kind of turn any sort of day around. So just definitely a big shout out to the boys. And yeah, we just go this next weekend. So
we got to rip it again, because honestly, I felt like the session wasn't even that long.
No, and let me know. I love playing Among Us. That game is so much fun.
We got to get E in there. Honestly,
the problem is E, like, fucking, it was 1 a.m. Eastern. Like, when this shit started. Yeah.
It was so spontaneous. Like, I did not think it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then just like Jay started asking around. He literally interrupted Chris and them's rank session just to get one of them to come play.
To be fair, they were supposed to play.
They were supposed to play with us. Yeah.
We literally had like 11:30 like set time. I show up and then they're ranking. They left.
So But yeah, like I said, just super thankful for that. So
Yeah, it was tough because like I've always been the one who said I didn't want to play Among Us. I just never wanted to do it. I just hate that feeling of somebody just gaslighting the shit out of you in the lobby, and you're trying to defend yourself, and nobody's believing. I hate that.
Hero.
I hate that feeling.
You never
I hate that
lied,
feeling.
you.
So when I
Never
go
lied.
into the first game, I'm like, you know what? Dawn had a rough day. I'll just play it. We'll have a time, and then I'll be good. As long as I don't get imposter first fucking game. What happens? I get imposter first game. And literally all I could do, my defense was like, they'd be like, I think it's Wyatt. I'd be like, shut up, idiot. Like that's all I had no defense. I couldn't sharpen my skills whatsoever. I was voted off immediately. The only defense I had was like, I'm just gonna kill Chris in this hallway. Because that's all I had. And I was like, I just gotta hope Moreover can figure out the rest. He couldn't. He did his best. And I took a lot of like pointers from him for the future, but I was terrible. And then Burke threw me under the bus in the biggest way I've ever seen, saying I vent jumped when I didn't.
Third game to him to get gaslighted. It was pretty bad.
I actually I actually think the worst part of that whole session was how many people were just fucking trolling on the crewmate side, like be like, I saw this guy vent, he did this. I'm like, you are seeing shit. Because I didn't touch no vents. I haven't moved.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, Jumbo got gaslit a few times. Like it was
Among Us.
Yeah.
Selling out here. You're selling.
It was Among Us.
It was Among Us. Also, I thought
anyway.
Jay would be the craziest imposter, like really tough to like get through.
Bro.
He killed somebody in broad daylight and got eliminated in the first round. So
I will say though, having Burke there, Burke is the guy like where he just never tells the truth about anything in general. He's always just trying to like shoot the shit. So it came down to where I had to guess between Burke and Jay at one point. I was like, we figured out it was Burke. I was like, listen, Burke, like if you fucking no, we figured it was someone else. It was like, look, if it came down to the two of you, I was believing Jay. I said, because
you have
I will not believe you about shit, Burke.
Yeah, you have to.
Anyways.
Jumbo, you got your heart to heart?
Mine was gonna be about how great of a friend Wyatt is and has been. I take that back after he gave away my first slot. Yeah, no. For real though, mine was gonna be that last night I hit 50K on YouTube, which I thought was pretty sick.
Let's go.
So
Huge.
yeah, shout out that was fun. I was just like, I haven't even posted a video in like 40 days. I'm working on a bunch of other stuff. And like, as I was just like looking at the screen here, I suddenly like saw I was at like 50,002. I was like, wait, what the fuck? So, I don't know. Like that's a big ass number, 50% of the way to 100K. And that's been a dream since I was like 12 years old. So who knows? Let's see.
That's huge. That's gigantic. That's absolutely gigantic. We love to see that for Jumba. E, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
You got it.
Okay.
I can rep it if you it seems like you need time.
I need some time.
I'll say, like, my thing is just like the thing that has hit me is just like consistency, because like I would say that like if I had been more consistent with like the times that I've streamed at and just like with everything, that I'd probably be way further along than I currently am, at least like with numbers wise at times. But like I've recently like gotten back to like that early morning consistent grind, and like it's like paying off, you know. It's like consistent. Like obviously we're not as big as we have been, but it's a nice little positive trend line, and I'm just gonna keep showing up, keep being consistent, and I know that if I do that over a long enough period of time, success is basically just guaranteed. And so just consistently work hard towards the goals that you have, and it's only a matter of time. And then at that point you just got to get down to like being patient, because I would say that the biggest thing that like stops people from achieving like the success that they want is that they think it should happen way faster than it ends up happening, because like something that they're expecting to hit in like 3 months might take them 2 years, but like they always had the ability to make it happen. They just were impatient. And so like they could have been where they wanted to be at like 10 years from now. I mean, like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But I mean, like they just quit.
Yeah.
And so just consistently work towards things, and it's basically like guaranteed. Like there, at least in my life, there hasn't been like, I can't think of like any like big major thing that I've been like, okay, like I'm going to go out and I'm like going to get this done and like devoted myself really to it that I haven't been able to like make happen.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And I definitely appreciate that consistency in the morning because I work from home. So it's nice to have a rotation of streams to throw on every once in a while.
Yeah.
Just to have some background noise. I can always count on E. Can always count on E being there in the morning. So
yeah.
Shout out to Enoch.
Let's go.
I was gonna say too.
I got Don watching. See, that means that Don's watching me in the morning, and then when Sang goes live, he's watching Sang Kraber my shit it's
it is actually crazy. You could probably you could put out the whole tally and you'll lose count. It's crazy how many times it happens.
Yeah, it is funny too because my coworker Matt, the one who was with us in the Airbnb, it was funny because a few days ago, I'm like, we work on the same table, and he had his phone kind of propped up, and he was watching something, and I look over and I see Enoch, and it's funny to me because he had always asked me about the Apex, and he could never figure out who was Finn and who was Enoch. Like he would always be like, "That's Finn, right?" Like, no, that's Enoch. That's Enoch, right? No, that's Finn. At least in the early days of the show when we had first started, and then now after he's met you, he's like every single day at work, he's got it propped up. And he's like, he's live every day. I'm like, yeah, he is. He's live every day. And Matt's just sitting there at work.
Except for Saturday. Except for Friday, Sunday, and Saturday.
Yeah, but we don't work Saturday. So he's just sitting there every day at work. He's just watching Enoch too. So that consistency, man. Like it's got Don. It's got my coworker Matt. Everybody's watching. Everybody's tuned in. That's what we want to see. We love to see it. The final heart-to-heart, mine. Many a time on the Apex the podcast, I have complained about my vehicle. Many a time I have complained about my vehicle, and I can finally say I got a new vehicle. I can finally say it. I'm feeling blessed. I'm feeling good.
Love to see it.
There's a lot of great things from it, and I was blessed to get it. I got a great deal on it. It feels good. And it has AC. I haven't had AC in a vehicle of my own for I don't know, maybe like 6, 7, 8 years. Like it's been a long
Living
time.
in California and not having AC is wild.
Yeah,
that's gotta be awful.
And especially living in the valley.
You just want to be a European so bad, bro.
Like it's just I'm just surrounded by heat, like at all times. So I haven't had it for a long time. And bro, lo and behold, like when you have AC, when I get off work, like I want to go do tasks. Like I'm like, oh, I gotta stop by the store. Like I'll go do this. Like yeah, no big deal.
Among Us mode, calling it tasks. What the fuck?
Yeah, like I'll go do stuff. Man. Before it was like I got in my truck and I was like, immediately get me home as fast as possible. Not only that, but the second I would get home, I'm pouring sweat and I immediately like have all the energy drained out of me. So I would just take naps before the Apex episodes because I'm like, I got to get like something in me to stay up. It's nice. Like it feels good. And, you know, cars are always going to have their problems. So I'm not going to say like my car problems are done because you're always going to have more of those. But I will say like to have something that's newer than what I currently have, something that's nicer than what I currently have, it just puts a lot in perspective and it just feels good, man. So I'm feeling great. Also got the other car back, Caitlin's car after our adventure of it exploding on the grapevine where we opened the hood and it was on fire. We fixed that up. So we got 2 working vehicles. What more could I be upset at? You know, what more could I be upset at? I'm feeling good. We've got AC. It's great. It's great out here. Right in time for the summer too. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Does Caitlin's car have AC?
It does, but I mean, I rarely drive that one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like she's usually in that one. So that is nice when we go on family trips. I've had AC, I guess you could say. But usually like driving home to and from work, it was just a nightmare. Like it was absolutely a travesty. And the original problem with it was it would just randomly die. Like it would just randomly die on the street. So I'd be in the middle of the freeway and I'm like waving people past me on like a
Caitlin's car?
No, in mine. And like when it was just dying all the time. Got that fixed. That was pricey. But yeah, we're feeling good. We're feeling good right now. I already bought some like I plan on taking way better care of this one. So I got like weather tech stuff on the bottom of the truck already. Like we're making sure this thing's staying clean. And here's the other thing. For the first time in my life, my vehicle has a back seat in it. So I've always had just like front, just one bench seat vehicles. All of my vehicles have always just had one seat. I've never had a back seat. So now I can just take the girls anywhere, even when mom's not there. So I can just take them. So like this weekend, Caitlin was like, I got to go do something. I just loaded the girls up in the truck, went around town, did nothing at all, just drove around, but it felt good. You know, it felt good to just have everybody in the same, well, just me and the girls in the same spot, driving around, doing whatever. So I'm feeling blessed. I'm feeling good. That's my heart to heart this week. We've got AC. We've got a back seat. Bought a car seat as well. Those are expensive. So we're feeling great. We're feeling real good. So that's my heart to heart this week. Ladies and gents, thank you guys. We'll catch you guys soon for another episode of the Apex, the podcast. See ya.